we have Delvin Lee as our special guest for today. We are very happy to have her here. She is the head of interior design from KEO, and it's great to have you here, Delvin.
Thank you, Professor Alma.
You're most welcome. So, Delvin, we understood that you're doing great projects. I mean, you're doing huge projects. I've seen in interior design. And the question is for me, first of all, how does color influence your design, your interior design? And what's the impact of that?
Well, color affects us psychologically and subconsciously, right? So we aren't even aware how color affects us consciously. Usually, we come into a space and we feel different moods depending on the design of the space. So color is just inherently there, and it will affect us consciously or subconsciously.
That's interesting what you say, because the subconsciousness of that is an impact which I find even very interesting. But coming back to use it as a kind of design tool, I mean, how are you doing when you're having your projects? I mean, is it the first thing that you're thinking about, the kind of color mood or whatever? Because, I mean,
Yeah.
I just enter as a normal person, I just enter a room or an environment and I feel comfortable or not.
Yeah.
But I cannot say why. And there is a lot of things, I think, which are also influenced by colors, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the color mood and all of that is delved into at the concept stage. So once you receive a design brief, then you figure out that space, okay, whether it's a spa or it's a restaurant or it's an office space or it's a home. So based on the brief, the color and the mood is the first thing that we look into. Color is so important. It affects people psychologically, of course.
And how do you do this? I mean, how do you create a color concept?
Well, it starts off by coming up with a concept. So the design concept is the underlying narrative behind the project itself. So that's what we kind of think about. So whether it's reflective and how it reflects in the context, is it a beachfront setting or is it in the desert? And how do we want people to feel in that property? So these are the kinds of elements and the kinds of influences that we have as designers to influence the concept.
It's interesting. And I mean, if I now look at a beachfront apartment, what would be your color suggestion for this? And how would it differentiate to, I don't know, to a house in a desert?
Well, yes. So yeah, I find it a tricky question because, look, the obvious thing to do is, watery hues because you're close to the beach, or sandy hues, right? And then in the desert, you might think about, that's the obvious response to a brief. However, as designers, we always aim to do inspired design, which goes deeper than just, okay, because we're at the seaside, let's do a room full of shells and fish. This kind of, we have to go beyond that and do a bit more deeper inspired thinking.
So good that you say this, because, sorry, but I think exactly this is what a quality of a design concept and a color concept is about. I mean, it's a differentiation. It's not just a decoration. It's an idea, and it's a connotation also about what the people and how the people should feel and think. Yeah, that's interesting. But how is, for example, in a desert, what would be your color suggestion then for housing in a desert, for example?
haven't really thought about it, but if I'm put on the spot like you are putting me on the spot right now, my approach,
Yes.
I guess, would be about creating an oasis, a shelter. It could be the idea of the hot desert, the harshness of the landscape, and then finding a serene oasis, whatever that means. And how about yourself, Professor Alma? How would you approach that?
That's a good question. Honestly, as I was asking you to this, I was asking myself, what would I do? But fortunately, I'm not a good interior and color designer. But anyway, what I was thinking about oasis, about water, which is the different differentiation to the desert. And I was thinking, how can we implement this kind of things to get more freshness on one hand, and on the other hand, the desert itself is such a wonderful nature, and as you said, it has such wonderful shapes. And I was thinking, how can we mirror these kind of structures on a color concept? So means that it should be some warm colors and so on. So, and the combination of these warmth of the setting and let me say the other way around of water and oasis and palms or whatever. So having this kind of nature and to have a combination out of this, that would be something which I really like. And what I also see is, I mean, what we understood is that you are having an exterior color and you have an interior color. And if you're looking at the facades of something, it can be a nice a differentiation. So in the outside, for example, I would really leave it in the colors of the desert, and the inside I would contrast a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how I would do this.
Yeah, that sounds aligned with how I would approach it as well. Yes.
Ah, good, good. Because yeah, it's so interesting. It always sounds so easy, just making some colors there, but colors have meanings. Colors also have meanings, a lot of meanings, also cultural wise. And that's something when I look at your wonderful jacket, it has very nice, sensitive colors. But if I would wear those kind of colors, it would not fit because I'm maybe too masculine for this. And
So yeah, I disagree with this approach because even for my kids, who is a boy and a girl, I encourage them to wear colors that are not necessarily what society expects of them. Pink being for girls and blue being for boys. I think we're at a stage in time where things have moved on, and so we should challenge those expectations, and that also applies to interior design, I think. Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. I mean, yes, I absolutely agree. There is a lot of discussion about this. I mean, me as coming from Europe, we also have very hard discussions about this and diversity and so all these kind of things. And coming up with that, it's really the question if that strict, learned old color culture which we have still does have a future like this. But again, as you said, I mean, how does it then, if it is like this, how does it then influence interior design?
Yeah, it does play a role, for sure it does. So how you would approach a ladies' spa would be very different to how you would approach for a barber, for example. And I think it does stem from what people expect. So yeah, I think that still plays a big role in what we do. It's what society expects. So you come to a bar expecting to have fun and full of energy and dance and flirt, right? So the design, color, mood, and scheme would be completely different to a relaxing hotel resort by the beach.
And what is a relaxing color and what is an activating color scheme then?
Relaxing is greens and blues. It's calming. It's natural or close to nature. And energizing and fun colors are orange, reds, yellows, those kinds of shades.
And it's interesting, even if we have cultural differences in color schemes, but these kind of things, what you're saying, they stay for every culture, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, I believe to an extent. Like I would say that red is considered a very lucky color in Chinese culture, which I am a part of. So that, and whereas in Chinese culture, white is death, right?
True, true.
But white is something else to the West. Yes, but overall, I think color psychology is underpins all cultures. So it is a fact that more colors that are reflective of nature is more calming, like the greens and the beiges and the muted colors, browns and blues. Whereas the bright colors are more energetic and give you a different type of mood. This color psychology.
Okay. And how is it within your company? I mean, are there different cultures coming together and thinking about these, creating these kind of concepts, or are you going to do it very close with the briefing of the client, or how does it work?
So depending on the brief and depending on the culture, depending on the location of the project, these all come into play. And of course, cultural aspects are super important when it comes to this kind of thing. For example, we're designing a school at the moment in KSA. So it's an international school, an American one. And we have used color as a signage and wayfinding and kind of differentiation between the different grades. So color in that way is less of, well, it is still has an impact on the psychology aspect. However, it's used more as understanding where the grades are positioned. So that color can not only be subconscious, but it could also help with signage and wayfinding. And in terms of cultural aspects, there are sometimes aversions to particular colors. So we have a lot of clients who would say, oh, no, not too dark, not too many dark colors. Don't go black in interiors, depending on if it's an apartment, for example, or a hotel. So I think cultural aspects are always there. It's always part of the brief, and we have to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a translation of a briefing into a solution, into a concept, and that's one of the most interesting thing for me in design and interior design is there is no logic. There is no right or wrong.
That's right.
You enter somewhere, either you feel well or not, but you cannot say what it in the end finally is. You can say, of course, it's the light, it's the height of the room, it's the materials and everything, but you don't know. It's always a combination of something, and it's not logical, because if it would be logical, we could have a mathematic form where we could count the right solution, but there are no right solutions. And
Yes.
it's that's something which is always very challenging for designers, and that's what I like, and it's so interesting. And as you said, I mean, I'm asking myself, for example, here in the UAE, I don't see too much of these aggressive colors. There is
Right.
not, there is nowhere there is red, for example, which is, as you said, I mean, which is the color of luck. of good luck. And in China, there is only one color, and that's red. I mean,
Yes,
and here it's not, isn't it?
that's
So
right.
why don't you use red here?
Why don't we see red that
Yeah,
much?
yeah.
I guess you might see it in a nightclub or a bar, or a restaurant which is themed,
Yeah.
or in a theme park. But I think it is a strong color, right? Red, too much red will affect us as well. So I can't imagine putting red in my bedroom. Or maybe you can. I mean, it depends on the personality of the person that's residing in the space. I think red. Okay, so what's the most uncomfortable space you've been in? Can you think of where the color of the interior had affected your mood, or made you feel disgusted, or made you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's for me. It's the too dark rooms.
Right.
So, and it's interesting because if something is dark, for example, also the wood or whatever, it's dark, it has a kind of elegance. But if it's too dark, it's just very uncomfortable. I myself, I see my energies going off,
Right.
when it's like this. On the other way, as you said, I also could not imagine to live in a red room, even if I like the color red and it's very energetic. But on the other hand, you are going crazy for this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had another. I now have to say we already had that theme, but the famous architect Alvar Aalto, he once designed a hospital, and he found out that most of the people, they are laying in their beds and looking at the ceiling. And so then in the whole hospital, he made the whole ceiling yellow because of the sun. He says it's the sunlight. And the people, they are missing this. And it brings them in a better mood.
Amazing.
And I love that. That's so simple, these kind of tricks.
Yeah.
But that is, by the way, what you said in the beginning. Therefore, I really appreciated that, how it influences us. Yeah. And yeah.
That's such a great idea. It's kind of thinking about applying color where you don't expect it to, in the
Exactly.
ceiling. That's
Exactly. Yeah. But what is your worst experience in terms of colors and rooms or environments?
well. I have a few examples, but one of them is because in the clinic that I have, and I was getting my blood tested, right? So I was looking away from from the injection, and I was looking at a painting which is on the wall, and guess what? The painting had blood red,
Okay.
colors, and so I was just laughing and going, I really can't get away from the idea of having my blood taken. It's
Wow.
reflected in the painting also.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
In a negative way. I mean, how can somebody do this? Huh?
Well,
But
they didn't think of it.
interesting, huh? That's empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy. And I mean, this is how I understood you. I mean, you try to emphasize and look it from the perspective of your clients and say, what do I need to do that they feel comfortable in the surrounding where they are living? And this is exactly what I expect from good interior designers, not only in terms of colors, but also in terms of the whole environment. But the coloring itself is really interesting for this.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it's so subjective as well. Some people love the color purple, and then others have said, no, I don't want to see that color anywhere. So it's such a subjective topic, color. But we can't kind of design to appease the entire population. What you can do is just what people expect. The majority of the clientele that you're designing for, it's what they expect, and so you should do that. But also, if you expect to improve someone's well-being in an office space, then you should design for it. Biophilic, natural colors, kind of, yes.
That's interesting. I'm wondering. You're doing huge projects here with all the new super towers and everything, and there is so big space and so many people living in there. And I mean, how does it work that these kind of concepts fit for everyone?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that when we are doing what we do, commercial interior design, designing a tower where people are expecting to move in, you've got to make everything, including the external, I think, quite a neutral palette, not offensive. Because the worst thing to do for a client is to limit the clientele because, oh, I really don't like that purple wall in the living room. We can't do that. We have to create a neutral base, which is appeasing and to the majority of people. And because you can't go wrong with off-white. And yes,
Yeah.
I think that's the answer.
That's interesting because also here, I mean, the the colors you're talking about, they are not really white, but they are always very warm, sand schemed colors, very warm natural colors around here, in all variants. And I really think when I see all these huge towers here, there is a lot of very sensitive color schemes in there. And they all have a kind of personal thing. And I mean, but what, for example, then is when we are talking about these kind of neutral interior, what then, for example, is the structure of the wall, so the surface of the wall, or these kind of things, are they also part of your concepts then, or is it just as they are just painted in a color and that's it?
They're definitely, I mean, the texture, the surface, the
Yes.
feeling of the wall, yeah, all of that is thought about, depending on how durable the wall needs to be. So, for example, in a kitchen or a bathroom, you will need glossy surfaces, tiles, for example, or glass, and painted walls, general for the other spaces. So the texture also plays a part. So maybe we want a feature wall which is natural and textural. So that might be kept in a different way than the neutral palette, which is the majority of the space.
And what about then the other things like lightning, for example? I mean, that obviously must be another very important thing, touching with coloring. How about
Yeah.
this?
I mean, without light, there's no color, right? So, it's definitely integral to the design process. Lighting, for sure.
And coming back, thank you so much. Coming back to the cultural impacts for this, I'm really touching on this because here we have so many people gathering together, coming from different cultures, but all in the end have the same, let me say, positive impacts and positive feelings about the culture of living in most environments. But what about if you're doing, let me say, private housings? And I
Right.
think you're doing a lot of private and also private luxury housing.
Well, that is a different ball game completely to commercial design, because you have to understand the client's brief personally. So on a personal level, their favorite color might be purple. So or the mood that they're creating is something different to what you would expect of a typical resident.
Yeah.
So that's different. And I think when it comes to designing sh- shopping, retail shops or restaurants or hotels, I think you can get even more creative. Same with a villa, for example. This is where there is even more creativity when it comes to design. When you're doing commercial interior design, you just have to ensure that the majority are accounted for.
But then the challenge is also very big. I mean, if you have private clients, because they are having very special ideas about things.
And they might even challenge our own beliefs, right? So they may say that I
Exactly.
really want the mirrors on the ceiling, and it's just something you would never think about doing, for example.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to which kind of extent are you fulfilling this kind of wishes? Or are there also things where you say, no, never ever we can do this?
We in design, we never say never. So we just have to understand the design brief, and anything can happen. And I think the best design comes from thinking outside the box as well. So yeah, I think, well, when it comes to ethics,
Hmm.
that's something that, you know, we can go on to. That's another topic. But I'm not talking about ethical issues. I'm talking about you know, doing black ceilings or something. That's not yeah, or black walls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not something that we would say no to based on our own personal preferences. When we're designing for clients, we have to put our position where the client and the end user would be, not ourselves.
Mm. Yes. I mean, again, the question of empathy, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. How does the architecture itself, how does it go together with the color concept for you, what you're doing? So, I mean, is it, for example, if you're planning these huge projects or also private living projects, I mean, is it always done together, the inside and the outside, or how does it work?
Well, where I am at KEO, we work very closely with our architecture team to ensure that the outside and the inside are speaking together. The worst thing to have is when the facade of a tower or the facade of a building is very, very different to the interior space. It's not often that we come across that challenge because we're there from day one with the architect.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good because this is not normal. I mean, there is a lot of issues regarding this, and I know it, for example, from the automotive industry. They have the car designers. They have exterior designers and interior designers, and that's it. So in the end, of course, they are talking together, but they are completely two different worlds. And and I know it. I mean, there is a lot of architects who are just doing the architecture and doing some sketchy ideas about the interior design, and finally then there is an interior designer coming some and doing the rest. So but it's good that you see it from a holistic approach, right? This
Yeah,
is
absolutely. And I think it's great to have a kind of architectural symbol from outside when you see it from the road, for example. But ultimately, you would spend more time inside the building, and so it's important how people feel from within, looking outwards, for example.
exactly. I mean, yes, and it's also the question is also if I look from a business point of view. I mean, how do we decide if we go somewhere and buy an apartment or whatever? Do we look at the outside and stand there and look at this and then say, yes, this is what we want? Or do we go inside of the apartment or in the house and then decide, yes, we love that, you know? So therefore, I think interior design has such a deep impact into that because again, this is also, as you started to say, this is a question of being conscious about. Most of us, they are not really conscious about that.
which I'm surprised with. But then
Why?
again, I'm surrounded by designers, so
Yeah.
I yeah, it's hard for me to think that people wouldn't be conscious of their surroundings or color or how color plays a role.
I think most of the people, they just are there and they feel it, but they are not really aware on this. Which is also fine. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's good. It would be not good if all of us are designers or interior
Yeah,
designers,
that's true.
So therefore, we need you as specialists for this, and and we want to learn from you. That's so important. And
And from you also.
thank you, thank you. Yeah. So Delvin, now we have learned so many things. I really, really appreciate it, and thank you so much. I mean, what we have been discussing about the influence of colors in the cultural part, the questioning of how is the impact going to change because of the changing of the values of people, and what I also learned is what I really like is that you said from a Chinese point of view, where you're coming from, that, for example, the meaning of colors is completely different. And we can also use these kind of methods to use this for our interior and also for our color design, what we are doing. And even me as a private person, I do understand and I learned a lot about this. And I have to say, it was really amazing. And thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much, Professor, and welcome. That's a bit weird.
Thank you so much.